The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host and or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of the host and or Paranormal Buzz Radio and or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is prohibited. Paranormal Buzz Radio will not be held responsible for you holding your knees, crying, and rocking in a corner in a puddle of your own urine, or being beheaded by a group of children in a cornfield. In fact, if you come across a group of children in a cornfield, we promise to make fun of you as you run away screaming in terror. Listener discretion is advised.
You are now entering the all-consuming realm of Shea's Paranormal Chat, where the things that are better left unsaid are actually said.
Shut up and sit down.
You're listening to Shea's Paranormal Chat. Paranormal podcasting done Shea's way. Tons of fun.
Dude, seriously?
A bit sarcastic.
Hashtag investigator, not hunter.
But always real. Don't get your panties in a twist.
Oh my god, really?
This is real, raw conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to Shea's Paranormal Chat. I'm really excited tonight. We have Kurtis Miller, who most of you from Iowa will know from Edinburgh Manor. And I know my Massachusetts accent, I never pronounce it right, but you guys know what I mean. So without further ado, hey Kurtis, how you doing?
Good, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited about this.
Me too.
We were talking, and I looked down, and I'm like, oh my God, we've been talking already for this long. It's 8 o'clock. I got to start. So,
yep.
We're going to give a couple shout outs before we get into it, because sometimes at the end of the show, when you're supposed to do shout outs, I forget to. But we already have Sue, who we were just talking about. Sue from Short Bus. She's already in the chat, which means Nick's probably right next to her. We have Nicole, we have Miss Kim, we have Matt, and I'm sure there'll be some more coming in, but I just wanted to say hi and thank you everybody for coming to the beginning of the show. And we have Mallory, she just got in there, so. Yes, Nick is sitting right next to Sue, so I figured. Excuse me. So how long have you been doing tours at Edinburgh Manor? I know I don't say it right. I'm sorry.
That's perfectly fine. I've been going there for about 3 years. I'm fairly good friends with the owners. I always remember my first trip there. I was actually with my sister, my nephew, and actually his girlfriend. And my nephew was a big skeptic, and to this day, I've always asked him, hey, would you like to, go visit the manor? And he will not step foot in that place.
Wow.
He is, I don't know what has happened, but yeah, he will not step foot in that place. It's quite strange.
So were you doing investigations before you became a tour guide?
Yes, I was. Okay. I've been doing investigations for going on almost 12 years now.
Wow.
But I normally do investigations. I do a lot of residential. People will call me up and ask me to help them out. But I do a lot of places that are not well known to the paranormal community, simply because I really don't go to places like Missouri State Penitentiary, Eastern State Penitentiary. Those places have been investigated by almost everybody. So I tend to try to get new places, even help out other businesses that actually do have paranormal stuff going on. I
love the lesser known places that aren't done much. it's a new place. You can tap into new energy that isn't overwhelmed with people all the time. Not that there's anything wrong with the big locations, but I'm with you. I personally love the little ones, the lesser known ones.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and it takes a little time for the spirits, especially when you go to a newer location that really hasn't been investigated. It does take them a little time to actually learn how to use the equipment and everything. I did one, I want to say a couple months ago. It was a church over in Bellevue, Iowa, that also had a small cemetery to it. They would always, around midnight to 1 o'clock, they would hear organ music coming from the church, and the church is completely abandoned. There's nothing inside the church. But I went over there and investigated it. I didn't find anything intelligent in there. I told the Historical Preservation Board that I think you're mostly dealing with something that is residual. So, it doesn't mean that he's not intelligent. It means he doesn't want, he's doing his own thing. He just kind of ignores you and that's what he's doing.
So you think residual can have some sort of intelligence, or do you think it's like black, white, and gray? There's somewhere in between?
I think they're a little bit in between.
Okay.
I've done a couple homes that I know of, and I don't want to give out the people's names, that they've actually had what I would consider residual, but then all of a sudden something changes a little bit, or they did something to the home, and all of a sudden now that's not going on. Now something else is going on inside the building. So
so maybe
and then
both.
That's been more of a consistent.
I've asked this quite a few times on the show, but when somebody starts using the words like residual and intelligent, it always comes back up. So I ask this quite a bit, and I'll tell you right away, I'm not sure. So I ask more out of curiosity. Now, what do you think about? Do you think there's a way for a spirit to have residual energy, meaning it's just like a record player playing over and over and over again, and then to actually have a location be haunted by the same intelligent spirit? I mean, I always think about this, and I don't know. Like I said, I'm curious of what people think.
Well, there is one. My sister calls me kind of a sponge of paranormal, that I'll just go ahead and research so much stuff. But there is a opera house in, I believe it's Granbury, Texas. A lot of people believe that John Wilkes Booth actually survived, the farm where he was supposed to be assassinated with. But it's an opera house that the people in Texas believe that John Wilkes Booth actually performed, and his spirit is actually there. It was investigated by the McLean brothers, from what I read. And Booth. I'm pretty sure they got it on YouTube right now, but then they went ahead and they tried to track down and follow where he was at. I believe it was in Kansas, and where he potentially committed suicide, and they have something residual there. Sounds like somebody taking, I believe what they said it was strychnine, which he committed suicide with, of somebody throwing up and having the after effects of that. But there's no intelligence there. It's just that constant vomiting sound.
I know it can be insensitive sometimes, but that is the most horrible residual haunting I can think of, is just hearing that noise over and over again.
Yes.
You know, it just kind of makes your stomach queasy just thinking about it.
Yep.
And there's no mistaking that sound.
No, there isn't. There's a lot of different sounds that there's no mistaking for. I've heard humming, crying, laughter, all that stuff, and some of that stuff I've actually even heard inside of the manor itself.
We were talking about a little bit about the spirits at the manor that you know by name. Do you want to start? You want to start there with?
Yeah, I can start with some of them.
Okay.
Of course, a lot of them. One of the first spirits we actually tell people about is Susie. She's a young female, probably anywhere between the ages of 8 to 10, from what we know of, that she was actually dropped off by her parents for reasons we don't know. But she is very active. From what I've actually captured, she's very active with females that actually have like children, or if there's children around, she's active with them. I have personally heard her hum. I've had my shirt tugged on. And one of the personal ones I've actually had my hand held, which felt like a young child, which I thought was actually kind of neat. There's other ones that actually do follow me around. One of the times I was actually giving a tour, we had a lady who was a medium, and she pulled me up to the side during the middle of the tour, and she's like, "Do you realize you have at least 2 to 3 females that do follow you around while you are giving the tour, female spirits?" And I'm like, "Well, I know that there are some spirits around here. I know there's a lot of them, but I don't know whether they're a male or female until I start asking." But one of the females that follows me around constantly, and it doesn't matter if I go downstairs, upstairs, even into the attic, her name is Veronica. From what I can get, she's in her middle 40s, early 50s. But every time she usually waits for me upstairs, and every time I go up there, I usually will end up getting a hug. Sometimes she's actually caught me by surprise. But that's kind of a personal type of thing that she's actually done. There's so many other ones. One of the other ones that I've actually recently came in contact with is in the Blue Room, which is upstairs. A lot of males will go in that room. There's actually 2 spirits in there. One, there's a lady who's just kind of medicated, kind of out of it in her own little world. And then there was a lady who we always called the angry lady in the Blue Room. She's just mad at everything, not just one individual person, just kind of mad at the world. And I could always, when I would go in there, and Becky would always tease me about this. She's like, "I would love to lock you in this Blue Room just for an hour just to see what would happen." I'm like, "Don't do it." Because I could never stand in there for at least, 5 to 10 minutes without either getting lightheaded, a migraine, even just a real bad BO smell. Is just basically, a lot of it's directed towards men because she's just trying to force men out of the room. But I've actually recently came in contact with her. Her name is Helen. And it's taken me a while to actually warm up to her. But I did ask her through a K2 meter. I was there in the manor all by myself. And we asked her, I said, "It's all right if I just go ahead and try to figure out your name?" I said, "I'll start from the letter A and I'll just work my way all the way down." And we actually got to the letter H. So I started naming off all the letter H's for a female, and we got the name Helen. asked her then, I said, is it all right if I stay in this room and just visit with you for a little bit? I actually stayed in that room for about 25 minutes. Perfectly fine, no effects, no nothing. So that's
I've seen
one of the recent
videos
ones.
on that room. That's quite a bit of time for a man to be in that room, right?
Yes,
That's
it's a very long time. We've actually had people that actually have been in that room that actually had to leave the manor and step outside because they actually felt nauseous.
Yeah.
That's happened several different times. So
we have a couple questions here, and
sure.
I'm only interrupting because I know I'm going to get so sucked into this conversation that I don't want to forget.
Sure.
The first question's from Nicole. She wants to know if you have a team, maybe a team page or anything like that.
I'm pretty much a solo investigator.
More like freelancer.
Yes. I have helped out Nick and Sue. They're good friends of mine, and I enjoy working with them. They're fantastic investigators. But my team page, it's on Facebook. It's Unseen Entities Paranormal. I have some of the stuff and locations I've actually gone and investigated. I can't list all of them due to some people also want it kept private. Yes. Yeah. So, but I'm more than open to working with almost anybody, or if anybody wants to tag along, I'll let them tag along.
I'll share that page on the show page later on too, so anybody can check it out.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sue has a couple questions, and I'm going to ask them both at the same time, and then you can answer in whichever order you would like. Let's see. I got to scroll down here. The first one was about Veronica. She wanted to know if Veronica is on the second floor in the women's wing. And then she also wants to know if you've had any contact with Violet on the stairs.
Okay. Veronica is on the second level. If you start walking down towards the women's ward, there is like a living room type of area there. We know for a fact that there are several children actually in that area, but she tends to hang out in that area. That's where she tends to wait for me. As soon as I go up towards there, I instantly get chills galore. I mean, my body is just frozen solid. Then after that, she will follow me all over the place, and I've had spirit box sessions with her. I've had the Ovilus 3 just go absolutely nuts with her name constantly. The K2 meter going off.
Sue added part to that question, where the dolls are. I think it's a question.
Yes.
Yes,
yep.
Okay.
That's where all the dolls are.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And what was her other question?
Have you had any contact with Violet on the stairs?
I haven't had like any K2 meter contact. I've had, to my recollection, just one or two contacts through an Ovilus. But I have felt her presence or somebody's presence on the stairwell or near the stairwell, where my skin just almost turns like a raw chicken, where it's just all goosebumps. Yeah.
And if other people are having experiences with that same spirit there, then there's, it's a pretty good guess, which is what it is, that's probably her. It doesn't mean it is, but until you can...
We've actually had one lady, as I was giving a tour, literally had the wind knocked out of her, which I believe it was her passing through this lady's body, which is very possible. Just actually draining her entire energy. It didn't mean that she did it maliciously, but it's just one of those things, it's only so wide, and, and she just happened to be wrong place, wrong time, And I've been scratched there multiple times. I've actually had my name.
sorry. I don't always think that scratches or getting the wind knocked out of you, like I don't associate that with always being malicious. Like they could just be trying to get your attention. They could, and it's
Yeah.
the only way they can communicate. It doesn't necessarily mean it's malicious. Doesn't necessarily mean there's a demon.
No.
But if that's how they get your attention, they could just be trying anything possible.
Yes. And like I tell a lot of the guests that do show up, as don't be alarmed. If you hear tapping on the wall or disembodied footsteps, which is very common, or if you do get scratched. The only time I would worry about if you got scratched, if it's drawing blood. Now that's something that might be a little more malicious. But most of the scratches are probably like someone taking their finger and the fingernail going into your skin.
And I don't mean if there's any physical harm that comes to you, especially people that aren't actual investigators, you always take caution. I just meant, it's not necessarily malicious, but you don't know, especially if you're not an investigator and you're new. You always take precautions. You always be careful, but it doesn't mean it's bad. You just need to be more careful.
Yes, and I always tell everybody that goes in there, the start of a tour, as look, as these people that were here, a lot of them are conscious. They still have the same emotions and feelings that we do. Some of the people that were there were also mentally unstable.
Exactly.
So they don't necessarily mean to lash out, but they do lash out a little bit, but it's nothing malicious. But, I tell them, once you die, those emotions that you carry do not go away. They actually stay. So if you're a racist or a bigot or whatever the case may be,
if you're an asshole when you die, there's a good chance you're going to be an asshole when you come back.
Yes.
That's my famous motto right there.
Yep. And, the late, great Peter James, which was one of my favorite mediums and psychics, had a famous quote, as in life, as in death. And I've had to explain that a few times to actual people. And there is actually a case where a lady who was provoking pretty bad downstairs, she actually did get shoved. And I kind of felt a little sorry for her, but I'm like, you really have that coming,
Yeah. Yep.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully she learned her lesson.
Oh, yes. And we have had people that have actually taken stuff from the manor and actually have brought it back.
Yes. Was it the missing doll?
The doll. There was another recent one. Somebody took rosary beads and some sort of instrument and a bowl and something else. And I happened to actually be inside the manor at the time. And I was talking to one of the owners. And I'm like, what in the world? There's a truck that just pulled up, dropped something off on the second step. And both of us made eye contact. And all of a sudden he took off around the front end of his truck, got in, and he was gone. I mean, he took off like it was the start of the Indianapolis 500. It was like, okay.
Yeah.
So we're trying to figure out where those things actually came from.
Did a Christmas tree go missing? Sue just mentioned it.
I don't think so. There might have been some ornaments. I know there's a lot of stuff that was missing from there. And one of the ones that we found was somebody actually took a Bible, and I was looking inside of the Bible, and it actually had a marriage certificate in there. I believe it was from the 40s. So, that's one of the personal effects that we've actually found inside of there.
that must hold a lot of sentimental value to somebody.
Yes. And I mean, when these that place actually closed down in November of 2010, these people actually had to literally just pick up and just walk out and leave and just get dispersed all over the place. So
Sure.
I do feel bad for them.
Yeah.
One of the other things I actually do feel bad. I've actually investigated the Clinton County Poor Farm.
Oh.
And what was neat about that was the maintenance man also was the maintenance man for Edinburgh Manor. And I got a chance to talk to him for a little bit. But that actually closed down in June of 2010. And the residents at the Clinton County Poor Farm had their choice. They could either go to the Scott County home or they could go to Edinburgh Manor. Some of them actually chose Edinburgh Manor, and then 6 months later they're displaced again. Which, to me, that must be extremely hard on somebody. You're familiar with one place, and all of a sudden now you're starting to get comfortable in another place, and now you're uprooted again.
So what is the? I think I know, but just in case anybody's listening, I'm not sure. But what is the Clinton Poor Farm? What is that? What exactly?
It's basically kind of like Edinburgh Manor. It was for the incurably insane.
Okay. Yeah.
It was basically a state-run facility located in Clinton County.
Okay. Yeah, because there's so many different names out there. I just wanted to clarify. That's what I thought you meant. But sometimes they have these just places where poor people live, and then they would send them off to places like Edinburgh Manor. And I think they called them arms around here. My sister just told me some of this stuff through research. So Kim Purvis is in chat, and she says it really pisses me off when people steal from these places. Yeah, it does. It's disrespectful. It's disrespectful to the owners. It's disrespectful to the tour guides. Disrespectful to the spirits. I mean, it's just and the fact that a couple times they've had to bring the stuff back. I hope they learned their lesson. That's all I can say.
I do. I've actually had, I believe, some of the spirits actually follow me home, which I every night I always tell them, look, you guys have to stay here. I said, you'll be safe. You'll be fine. I give you my word, but I've actually been woken up middle of the night a few times and looked out down the hallway, and it's my hallway will actually give a little bit of moonlight away, and it's just pitch black, but nothing malevolent. But come to find out that people who've actually spent the overnight have been kind of aggressive with people there, a little bit disrespectful. So I don't know if they're coming over just a little bit for a comfort or just to get away, whatever the case may be.
Now, do they fall when you leave and you say, don't, you can't come with me, stay here, I'll see you tomorrow? Do they follow you anyways once in a while, or is it when you forget to say it, or they just happen to show up?
I think it's more or less just happen to show up.
Maybe trying to say, hey, something's up.
Matter of fact, I had one in October. It was middle of the week. These guests, they're kind of squirrely, the way I want to put it, politely. Very rambunctious, just running around scaring one another. And I told them, I said, the guest house is unlocked. You can spend the night in there. And what actually ended up happening is I got a text about 4 a.m. saying that they were done investigating and that they were actually sleeping in the car. So I quick call them. I said, what's going on? I said, why are you sleeping in your car? There's plenty of room in the guest house. And they're like, we can't sleep in the guest house because there's constant pounding on the walls. And I'm like, okay, that might be a reason, I don't know what you may have done to upset them, but, I said, you have to remember you're dealing with people that were also, elderly, mentally unstable,
Yeah.
Back in that time period, they may not like, what you're doing, so they're conscious of that. So, and I've actually,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I've actually felt, watched, in the guest house, nothing really, super bad has happened. I've heard like slight tapping on the wall, trying to grab my attention. That's basically about it in the guest house that I've actually heard. I've actually heard a lot of stuff inside the manor, and Sue and Nick can actually.
She just asked in the chat before you go on. She said, "Kurtis, tell everybody about the night you slept in the manor." So this might be a good segue for that.
Yes. I was actually fortunate enough to help out Nick and Sue. It was during the Labor Day weekend. And we actually were investigating. We had a skeptic with us. And he actually turned into a full believer. But everybody decided to go ahead and crash about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. They go ahead and they decide to sleep in the guest house. Nick and Sue was like, you're more than welcome to come and sleep in the guest house. There's plenty of room. I said, no, I'll be okay in the manor. I said, the front door's locked, the back door's locked. I said, I'll be safe. So I'm literally, yeah. So I'm literally walking around in the dark, trying to communicate with them. Had a little bit of communication. So about 5 in the morning, I decide where I'm going to sleep, which is in Susie's room. I feel very comfortable in there. And I want to say probably about 45 minutes later, I get a little bit of activity. We brought a trigger object, which is a balloon that had a glow stick into it. And I saw a little small figure, which was probably Susie, playing with the balloon. And this lasted for maybe a minute or so. And then it was gone. So I decided.
Sorry to interrupt again. I've interrupted you probably more than any other guest. That is an awesome idea.
Yeah.
A glow stick in a balloon. I've never heard of that.
Yep. And so I decided to fall asleep about 6 o'clock in the morning. And it's like, I'll get a little bit of sleep, a few hours. I get woken up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I knew it was exactly 7 o'clock in the morning because I looked at my cell phone. And what woke me up was a sound of somebody taking their hand, and there's several wooden dressers in there, and slamming it as hard as they can on the wooden dresser inside of that room. So it basically woke me up out of a sound sleep. And I'm like, all right, guys, I'm up. And Nick and Sue thought they were going to sneak in about 8:30, 9 o'clock and, come and get their equipment. And they're just, to their surprise, I'm standing at the door like, hi, guys. And, they're like, well, didn't you get any sleep? And I said, well, about an hour. So that day I actually was up till about 1 o'clock that afternoon before I decided to crash, and I was out for most of the night. So, but yeah, nothing super malevolent in there. I just think that was a spirit of somebody who actually ran part of the Fore Farm and actually thought I was one of the residents who overslept and was supposed to be out in the fields.
He was trying to get you up.
Yep. And he did succeed. I will give him props for that.
Yeah. Well, I would have been too.
Yep. But yeah, we've had a lot of different experiences in there. One of the coolest ones I've actually ever witnessed was on a tour. I was helping out one of the owners, and we were in the famous room, number 200, which is upstairs. It's just right up the steps on the main level. And I was helping out a gentleman who was in a wheelchair, and room 200 is kind of small the way it is. So I'm standing outside of it, and something's grabbing my attention on the men's wing. But as you're looking into the room 200, it's off to your left. And both wings actually have double doors. There's steel doors, and they actually lock them at night to keep the men and the women separated and kind of corralled so there wouldn't be anybody roaming around. But the door on the right decided to shut all by itself. And these doors are propped open with these little triangular wedges. And they don't move very easily. And the door completely shut all by itself. And as everybody's walking out, I tell one of the owners, and I point down to the section, and she was like, no, they need to quit right now. And I just kind of chuckled. I said, yeah, that's good luck with that. I said, I don't think they're going to quit. I said, but we walked completely down towards the women's section and came back towards the men's section. So that was one of the coolest things I've actually ever personally witnessed paranormal activity on that scale. I mean, that takes a lot of that takes a lot of power and energy to shut one of those doors. And I went over there after it shut, and it was still a little chilly over there. And this was actually during, I believe it was in May, so it was fairly warm out there and fairly warm inside the building. So, you know, that's kind of unique and interesting.
Yeah, and it takes so much energy for that. So it's almost amazing in itself that it could actually happen.
It is.
Yeah.
And I've captured, I don't know how many orbs in there. One guest who was actually spending the night, they decided to take the day tour, which was perfectly fine. And she had her cell phone out, and she was downstairs in the laundry room area, and she was filming inside of one of the office areas there, down in the basement. And I'm kind of watching her cell phone. And she actually captured an orb going up the door jamb of the office way. And I go to her, I said, oh my God, I said, do you realize what you just captured? And she's like, no, what? And I said, are you serious? You did not see that. So I had her stop what she was doing, rewind it back, and she's like, oh my God. Is like, is that dust? I said, dust really doesn't go up a door jamb. Dust is like a snowflake. It will go down. And
I've seen them go up, but not straight up. Not like.
Yeah.
I've seen dust. I mean, I've seen dust go up, but not straight up a door jamb.
Yeah. So this was actually really neat. I mean, it all of a sudden it kind of like dissipated or disappeared. Probably about three quarters of the way up the door jamb. So it was really neat. I'm like, I have never, seen an orb like that captured even on a cell phone. I've got them in photographs. There's people who have sent me photographs. Matter of fact, I have one friend who sent me some photographs of Alaska. And she actually captured 3 orbs in one photograph. I'm like, that's pretty amazing.
So, I'm trying to word this right because I make jokes about orbs a lot. So,
that's fine.
What are your thoughts on what do you think orbs are? Do do you consider them energy? Some people think they're spirits. Do you think it's a mixture of things? Do you have no idea? I mean, if you have no idea, you have no idea. I'm just wondering. Not too many guests bring up orbs to me because I make so many jokes, and I knew you were going to bring them up. I did. I was well informed, so I did know. So I want to know, what do you think they are? Because I don't get the chance to ask many people.
I actually think they're energies of actual spirits. I think it's a partial manifestation, I want to say, of a spirit. That's what I believe they are. To see a full-body apparition or even a partial, it takes so much energy for them to do it.
Right.
I think that's probably the most common manifestation of a spirit, actually, is what I think it is.
Right. Yeah. I'm picturing different
I've actually
things in my head.
I've actually captured an orb that actually has two different colors into it, which is quite unique. It was white in the center and it had a blue aura around it. And this was actually at nighttime. So,
do you think the colors represent something? Because some people do. Or do you just think it was that much more intense?
I've heard they represent something. I've heard blue a lot of times will represent usually a female spirit. But I'm not totally sure or convinced on it until I get, maybe like an audio evidence, with that. So,
have you ever seen? I say light anomaly. So, but have you ever seen an orb with your own eye?
Yes, I've seen orbs. I've seen a lot of shadow people, especially at the manor. The more I tend to go, the more shadow people I do tend to see a little bit. Lately, we kind of call them peekers, where they just will peek a little bit outside of, their rooms or a doorway to see what's going on. Normally when I go in there, I'll tell them, who I am. Tell them, all right, guys and gals, it's okay. I give you full permission to come on out of your rooms. You can interact, do whatever you want. That's perfectly fine. I do tend to get, when I do say that, a lot of disembodied footsteps. One that really actually got me nervous was after a tour. I was waiting for an overnight. I was sitting in the office area. I had about an hour to kill. The whole tour itself was really strange because we normally give people, after the tour, some time to roam around and experiment and just see different things in the manor by themselves. But everybody was actually gone after about 15 minutes of the tour, and I'm like, this is really unusual because we're normally trying to, hey, we have some overnight guests spending the night, we need to kind of wrap this up real quick. But I actually heard heavy footsteps with a moving purpose coming from the women's ward towards the office area. But the footsteps actually sounded like the old-time, like solid-heeled shoes.
Oh, I got you. And, that heel. Yeah, you could just tell the pattern of the hard, soft, hard, Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And it's getting closer and closer to the office area, and I'm on my phone just messing around, checking messages and everything. I literally put the phone down, and I look out of the doorway, heading into the hallway, fully expecting us. And I don't know if I'm going to see a shadow person or if it's going to be a full-bodied apparition, but there's nothing. So I finally get up the courage after about a minute or two and actually stick my head out the doorway, and there's nothing there. There's no footsteps or nothing, but it is absolutely chilling in the hallway of that area. So, and I grabbed the phone. I decided to do a spirit box session right there, and I got on the spirit box. What are you doing? And I'm like, okay, I'm just here waiting, playing on my phone. If you want, you can come and watch me. That's perfectly fine.
I'm trying to catch up. My chat froze here, so I was
that's
trying
fine.
to catch up. Back to the orb thing. Sue said we caught an orb coming out of the infirmary and went to the drinking fountain and then turned and went back into the infirmary.
Yes. I've actually captured a few of them around the drinking fountain. There's actually another one I've actually captured, and getting ready to put that on my Facebook page, is we actually caught a orb around the pool table. And there's one my wife actually captured, which was kind of neat. It was on the main level women's ward. If anybody is familiar with Edinburgh Manor, the main level, you can walk all the way down the hallway in the women's ward, and there's kind of like a rec room type of thing for the females there. And in the photograph, I actually had to blow it up really like a 9x11 photograph. And she actually captured 5 orbs in this photograph. And a couple of seconds later, she took another photograph, and there's only 2 orbs in that photograph. And I'm like, that is just absolutely amazing. But she asked when she took the photograph, because I was in Sarah's room, which is the room where the lady was unfortunately attacked multiple times when she was a resident there. If you guys would like your photograph taken, I'm going to take it. And she always counts to 3, and then she snaps the photograph. But she's had a lot of luck with that lately. But, Sarah is another entity I've actually had contact with through a spirit box session. Unfortunately, in places like that, they do have where some women or even men were abused.
Yes.
Unfortunately, yeah. Sarah, who was in her late teens, was assaulted multiple times. We don't know who did it. But I've gone on a spirit box session with her, and she has told me her name, and I asked her, Sarah, what actually happened to you? And it came across raped. And I felt really bad. I asked Sarah, I went, can you please tell me who did this to you? If it will give you a little bit of peace of mind. The very next thing that came across the spirit box was a male voice telling her to be quiet.
Was Nick and Sue with you, or are they?
No, not at that one.
They might have gotten something similar somewhere else then, because it sounds familiar to me.
Yes, they have. I know when I was with them Labor Day weekend, we actually got in contact with Sarah a little bit. And that was quite interesting. And I know Chuck has came across Sarah too.
So sad.
It is. It's just, and being in that situation, we don't know why she was there, whether she had ADHD, whatever. You could be put in that place for multiple things of,
yeah, there's some crazy reasons.
Depression, and a lot of it people don't really understand and get that you could be put in that place very easily if you were a female.
If you had PMS, your husband
you.
could put you in there.
Yes,
I mean, it's crazy what they could do then.
Yeah, I mean, if he wanted to have an affair and he didn't want to get divorced, he could put you easily right in there, and nobody thinks nothing of it. Or I tell people there are probably some spirits here. As I haven't ran into contact with them yet, but there might be spirits here who are unwed mothers, and it's very common for families to hide a pregnancy to commit a female to this type of location until after the baby is born, or they have an abortion, or whatever the case may be. Yeah. And I think it does open a lot of people's eyes and minds, to how things were back then compared to what they are now.
Exactly.
And how much we've actually grown. So
the atrocities that took place at some of these locations that sometimes people forget, we forget, even myself, sometimes you go to these locations and you're so focused on what can I catch, sometimes we forget the horrible,
you lose that human element.
Yes. And it's like, so, and I say me, cause I've done it. I'm guilty of it too. I'm not, and then when you sit back and think about it, like, wow, sometimes it's overwhelming to me what people will do to people. And then it gets me thinking, well, this is such a horrible place for this person. Are they, after they die, if their spirits here, are they stuck here? Was it because of the trauma? Did they choose to stay here because it's the only place they know, or do they not know how to? And my mind just goes and goes and goes. And, and of course, I have no answers,
And I have investigated a sanatorium in Colorado, which I was given a tour of. And if you were basically a biter, and come to find out, it was a very common practice throughout the United States, that if you bit multiple times, whether it would be another resident or a staff member,
they would. I know where you're going.
They would rip out all your teeth.
Yep.
And it's horrifying to think that they actually did these type of things.
Yeah.
And it's just sad that people kind of tend to forget, what that was,
And like you said, we've come a long way. I mean, obviously, people need to keep growing, and we still need to go a lot further when it comes to mental illness. But if you look at it as a point of view from even the 50s, even the 60s, 70s, you can go as far as 80s, we have come a long way. And
we have,
just not far enough yet, but we're getting there slowly. But
I mean, I tell them, today, you really can't strike a patient. But back in the day, you could almost go to the point of beating them up almost, putting multiple bruises, breaking bones, and that was standard practice back then.
Or strapping them to their bed. I mean, just some of the.
Yep.
So we wonder why these places, are so haunted. And I mean that in more than one way. The emotion that happened there itself is enough to make the building feel things. Never mind the spirits that are still there.
And I've actually caught on a recording. I was waiting for a overnight guest, and I decided, I'll go into different rooms. I can't really explain how I get it. It's kind of a gut feeling.
Yeah,
I want to say. But I went into the upstairs, women's ward, and the women's ward is very active for some reason. But I decided to go into a room that's not very active, and during the tours we tend to kind of shy away a little bit from, certain rooms that are not super active, because basically people want to hear the paranormal stuff that actually goes on. So I lay a digital recorder in there and I just leave it run, and I pick it up probably half an hour, 40 minutes later, start playing it, and I hear a female crying in this room. And what room it was is, I call it the yellow room, which is a giant, kind of like a family room in front of the building. But I have never actually heard a female cry in the building, but let alone have that on a digital recorder. It's amazing. And I'm sure there was a lot of crying. I've actually heard through another recording that somebody has shared with me. Somebody actually, it was in the women's ward, of a female coughing like she was sick. Now, we do know of a female resident who was there. Her name's Elizabeth. She's about 12 years old from what I can get from the records. But she died the mid-1910s of pneumonia. So I don't know if that was her or if there was, we know of another patient who actually had cancer upstairs, whether that may have been her or not. But those are the two I could kind of roughly figure out, unless there was another entity in there.
I'm trying to figure out this question in the chat, so
that's fine.
I'm not sure. Mallory's asking, does he know what happened to all of the kids? But then she meant the kids' spirits. I'm not sure. Most of them are still there, Mel. I'm not exactly sure. Yeah. So if you want to add to that question, you can. But
like Susie, we don't know why she stuck around, or if she actually was there until she was an older lady. Right. We just don't know, or, if they decided to, or she decided after she was 18 or whatever it is, I'm going to try to go out on my own. And, we really don't know. I know that there was families there who were actually thrown off their farm. They couldn't stay there for some reason or another, that they brought in multiple children there. We really don't know. The best way I can put it in the way I kind of describe Edinburgh Manor is, when I give a tour, is if you go to like Walmart or wherever it is, and you see this really nice puzzle. So the outside of Edinburgh Manor as that puzzle picture. The inside of it is all the pieces, and that's when, everybody who comes and investigates has a little different piece of the puzzle, and we really can't get the full picture of Edinburgh Manor of what it exactly was. Is the best way I can kind of describe what it really is. We have an idea, but we really don't know. Only the spirits know, and
right. Yep.
We can only get what they tell us.
We try to fill in the blank spots, which sometimes helps us, and sometimes it doesn't. There's only so much information.
Yep.
Mal, you're fine. No, yes, this. She said sorry. She's been in and out, but that's okay.
That's fine.
The children's spirits that he has been discussing tonight, yes, they are still there.
Yes.
And he and the other people that have investigated there, they're not sure if the kids left while they were alive and came back. They're not sure if they died. that part nobody's really sure of, just like almost any location, unless there's news articles and records. That's the only way we can be sure. But the spirits of these children are still there as of right now.
Yes.
It's
and I mean, they are active.
Yep.
You know, I've heard children laughter. I've heard running up and down the hallways, mostly on the main level, which I believe is Susie. And one interesting thing with Susie is I was doing an investigation there with my wife, and she decides to go ahead and get supper for us. So she decides to run to Subway, and she decided to run to Anamosa. So she calls me when she gets there. She's like, "You okay?" And I say, "Yeah, I'm perfectly fine." But a lot of people, when they do investigations, they'll bring like snacks or whatever it is. So I told Susie, I said, I have some snacks down here. I said, I have Chips Ahoy cookies. If you want Chips Ahoy cookies, they're chocolate chip cookies. Help yourself. And I opened up the package, you know, having a couple of them myself. Had my back turned to the cookies, and the next thing I hear is the wrapper opening, and I turn around and shutting really quick. And you can see it a little bit of a flutter of the wrapper. So it kind of acted and sounded like a young child trying to sneak some cookies.
Aww.
So I told her, I said, you know, you can come back. You can have as many cookies as you want. I said, you're more than welcome to have, you know, cookies. Anybody is. So when Nick and Sue actually did their 2-day investigation at Edinburgh Manor, I kind of teased Sue a little bit, and I'm like, Sue, did you bring cookies for Susie? I said, you know, you might get a little interaction with her from that. I said, she might like that. And there are people, and I've been in the manor itself, where people have actually left candy bars, all sorts of different things for the children's spirits.
Sue said it could have been Willie, too.
Yes.
We have a couple of questions here. I'm going to start with, I'm going to start with Sue's because it's relevant to, there could be relevant to this story. Kurtis, have you ever heard of Elijah, or have you heard the violin playing from the women's ward on the first floor?
Yes, in Nelson's room.
Oh.
Nelson was one of the caretakers of the building. His room was on the women's ward towards the back of the building. He also did have some of his daughters there. And one of the neat things about that, I actually took my millimeter, and they had a music stand there. And it was kind of off in the middle of the room. And I was actually getting, you know, a baseline reading of 0.3 to 0.2 in the room. As soon as I go over to the music stand, I'm getting hits of anywhere between 6 to 7 on the millimeter hit. And this is 6.0, whatever it was, on the millimeter for no reason whatsoever. And there's nothing electrical around it whatsoever.
Right.
And there's no book or anything on there. And I couldn't explain it. So, Elijah, I have heard through Becky, but I haven't came into contact with that entity yet.
Mallory brought up a good question that I usually ask right away, but I was so interested in hearing your stories that I forgot to actually ask. So thank you, Mel.
Uh-huh.
She wants to know what got you into paranormal investigating.
What got me into it is actually, it's a quite interesting story, is I originally had relatives that lived in York, Pennsylvania. And it was, I don't know, I was probably like right around 11, 12 years old. We decided to go visit them. And on the way back home, my parents decided, it's like, well, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to Gettysburg, and we're going to go to the Hershey's Chocolate Factory. And at that time, I'm like, Gettysburg, great. I really wasn't into it.
Yeah.
I was more or less interested in the Hershey's Chocolate Factory. Well, we got to Gettysburg, and I was really fascinated by it, especially in the museum. But I was taking the tour, and I was actually on a location known as Devil's Den. And I was standing on the rocks, and I heard in my ear, plain as day, and I can still remember what the sound was like, is "You should not be here," right in my ear. And it literally scared me to death a little bit, because I'm looking around and there's nobody there, and my parents are down by their vehicle. So there's no explanation for that. And looking back at some of the photographs that we actually had, we actually did capture some orbs in the photographs. So that was really neat. And I'm, in my mid-40s, so that's quite a long time ago for that type of an experience.
How old were you? Did you say 12?
Yes.
Okay. I thought that's what you said, but I wasn't sure.
Yep. So that's what really got me
started thinking
into it. That was my first one. Yes. And I've had other different.
Did you continue to have experiences, or was there a big gap?
I've had different experiences. One of the other ones I've had, we had a neighbor who I was very close with pass away, and his family actually asked me to come in and help clean up the house. And I've been in his house a few times, but to actually go upstairs, I got a real eerie feeling of, being watched very closely, feelings of, this room you should not go into, and I've kind of stayed away from it. So, and I've had different feelings, actually even in cemeteries. We got a cemetery that I am probably about 4 to 5 blocks away from is our local cemetery. And it's where my grandparents are buried. And I've had a lot of interesting things through the obelisk come through on there, which was kind of unique and personal. And one of them, as I was walking up towards there, I got the word grandmother coming across. Well, at the time, I was carrying a lighted hummingbird, and she was always into hummingbirds, squirrels, rabbits. And her old hummingbird was actually damaged, so I brought a new one, laid it into the ground, and I told her, I said, "This is a brand new one for you." And I went to go pull the old one out, and my grandmother was kind of a hoarder. She really did not throw away anything. The very next thing that came across the obelisk was "keep and save."
Aww.
So I didn't even get that old hummingbird out of the ground, not even an inch before that came across. So I was like, all right, if you want it, you can have it. And I just stuck it right back in the ground. I was like, it's all yours.
Aww.
But here's the brand new one for you.
My heart.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, people don't think I have a heart, but I do. I just hide it well, but I couldn't hide it when it comes to grandmothers. I can't hide it. Oh, that just...
And there's one that my wife has actually captured. We investigated the Clinton Engines building, and my wife's from Dubuque, so she has really no recollection of my grandparents because they died before she could actually meet them. And she was downstairs looking at some of the old photographs, and the word grandfather came across, and the word Henry came across. Well, my grandfather, his name was Henry Daler, and she's looking at photographs. She's like, does these two things mean anything to you? I'm like, well, yes, but show me where you were at when you got those. And she was looking at this photograph, and the photograph that she was actually looking at was a photograph of, it had my grandfather standing in a line with some of the rest of the main office people. And I'm like, you see that person right there? Well, yeah. I said, read down the bottom what that says. And she read it, and she's like, you have got to be kidding me. And I was like, no. That is really neat. And that place is really neat to go visit, too. I would highly recommend that place also.
Oh. That is such a sweet story. Even, Sue just said that, too. Oh, sweet. It is. It really, really is.
Uh-huh. So, yeah, I have had some personal contact, with actually my grandparents through certain times. I don't know whether they're looking out or watching, what I do, but I do feel very comfortable, in that. So,
what was the last place you were talking about?
The Clinton Engines Museum.
Okay.
That's located in Maquoketa, Iowa. It's a very nice museum. People don't realize how huge that factory was, but that factory actually had, I believe it was 2 deaths on the property itself while it was in manufacturing. And those spirits actually do roam the grounds.
The 2 that died on the property, you mean?
Yes, the 2 spirits that actually have passed away actually do roam around on the grounds. And there's actually another spirit. We actually captured a recording, and it took me a while to figure it out, but it was in the office area, and it sounded like men's corduroys swishing as somebody's walking.
Oh, that's another sound that's unmistakable.
Yes. And I mean, it literally took me a little bit to figure out what in the world that was. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And the reason I got called there is they actually had one of the tour guides quit on them because one of the doors actually shut on one of the tour guides. And it's like, would you please come and investigate this place? And it's like, something's going on. It's like, we got another one that will stay here, and she'll have the radio blasting as loud as it can to try to drown out the noise.
The 2 deaths at the Clinton
Engines. Yep.
Yeah. Is it known how they died?
Yes. One actually died. Unfortunately, he was working behind a fork truck, and the parking brake failed, and it accidentally crushed him to death. Another one he was working on the line and actually got caught in the line and actually killed him right then and there.
Oh, jeez.
So, yeah, that's some of the kind of sad and gruesome things that have happened. But, yeah, they still do roam that area.
That is sad. That's
It is.
cringeworthy. Both of those are cringeworthy.
Yes.
You know.
Yes, it is. And a lot of people really don't realize that, there's, factories that do actually have haunted locations to them. There were a lot of deaths back in the day due to there wasn't what we now have as OSHA regulations.
Yeah.
Back then,
We have them for a reason, people.
Yep.
Yep. They used to, little kids used to work at some of these factories. So
they did.
It's amazing that there wasn't more than 2 deaths at just this place alone.
Yes. And this place was actually in business for quite a while. I want to say probably in the 30s, 30s to 40s, all the way up until mid to late 90s. It was in full run-in effect. It was several blocks long. The entire building was.
That's huge.
So, yeah, it was very big, especially around, eastern part of Iowa. Everybody pretty much knew who Clinton Engines was.
Yeah. Before we're going to start wrapping things up, I'm just making sure there's no more last-minute questions from the chat. While we're waiting, do you want to throw out your social media info again?
Yes. My Facebook page is Unseen Entities Paranormal. There's a lot of stuff that we put on there, photographs of the manor, reports that we have done from some of the other locations, and that. So if anybody wants to ask a question, feel free to ask a question. I'm more than happy to answer them the best I can. So,
and again, I'll throw that link up on the page.
Okay.
Within 5-10 minutes of the show ending, I will have that up there. I just want to say thank you for reaching out.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we could go on and on, but I try to keep them. The show is about an hour, and we've already gone an hour and 20 minutes. But I would love to have you back sometime.
Absolutely. I would love it.
Yeah. Maybe we can get you, Nick, and Sue all at the same time.
Okay. Oh, that'd be great.
Any excuse I have to get Nick and Sue on the show. But you guys share such amazing stories together. You know what I mean?
It is.
That would be great.
Yes. I would love to do it. Absolutely.
Nicole, by the way, Nicole is not only my sister, I keep saying Nicole, she's also my co-founder, one of my best friends, if not my best friend, I should say. My only friend. No, just kidding. So she's already liked the page, and I'm sure she shared it somewhere.
Thank you.
So, and I will share it. I love you too, Sue. I'm going to give out a couple shout-outs and very quick announcement here. Sunday, we have no show. The Skeptic and the Psychic will not be on Sunday due to the holiday. Tonight, we were not actually going to air either, but I made a special exception just for Kurtis.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I was happy to hear from you. Next week, we have, on Friday, we have Alita, who's usually in chat or she's in the background. She always listens. She has a new book coming out. She's quite interesting person to talk to. So hopefully everybody can come and listen to her. So for shout out, just because we had some more people pop in. Of course, thank you again, Sue, Nicole, Wolf, Mallory, Kim, Luna, thank you. Jen popped in. She's still there. She's another one listens in the background, so don't I. So let's see who else. Matt was in here. Kim, I said, and I can only scroll so far, so I don't want to forget anybody. That's why I do it in the beginning too, because I always forget somebody. And then after I end the show, I'm like, oh no, I forgot to say thank you to that person. And anybody not in chat that listens later on or is just quietly listening in the background, I really appreciate it. Anything else you want to add before we go?
Not a lot. If I would highly recommend visiting Edinburgh Manor. They can actually go on to Edinburgh Manor's webpage. It's a Wix webpage. Find out when tour information is, and actually overnights. I highly recommend doing it. It is actually one of the more active locations in Iowa. So
I hear that a lot.
Definitely. I mean, it's nothing like Ghost Adventures. Puts it out as a dark, bad place. Yes, it did have some dark times to it. Dark things did happen. But for the most part, it's not, super horrible like they portray it to be, So I highly recommend, even if they want to do just the tour, it's well worth it just for the history part of it.
I hear that if you get to go to Iowa, that is the first place you got to check. Not the only place, but that is one that you cannot miss, that you have to go to.
Yes. Yes, it is. And we've actually had people from, matter of fact, there was one from England that actually came over, and they were actually doing a ghost tour all through Iowa, and they made it a point to stop here. So it was very neat to meet those people. And like I said, there's so many different things that happen during the tour.
We barely touched the stories tonight.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much to tell on this place.
It is. There's just so much, and there's so many different things that actually have happened there. And it's amazing.
That's why I said, again, anytime you want to come back, we'll have to schedule something after the new year for you guys to come back, because I love hearing about it. I make jokes, but I'm dead serious when I say sometimes I forget that I have never been to these Iowan locations, because I hear about them so much that it dawns on me, wait a minute, you've never been there, Shea. What? Huh? Oh yeah, that's right, I never have. Because I just hear about them so much. I feel like I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, me and Nicole make it out there someday.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. We would love to have you.
And we'll be sleeping at Nick and Sue's house. Okay.
I'll tell the spirits to be nice to you in the guest house.
Yeah. I would probably sleep there. I guess it depends on the mood of the night, I guess, is how I would base it. If it was a bad mood for the location, maybe I wouldn't stay there. But if it was an okay mood, then, I probably would. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Kurtis, hold on 1 second.
Sure.
Thank you. Good night. And I will see you guys, or you guys will hear me, but I'll see you next Friday.
For more information regarding what Paranormal Buzz Radio has to offer, visit our website, paranormalbuzzradio.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram.